toll free number, India ro toll number सब दिया है थी.
से मत कला मत कोई कर दे.
She can actually call the toll free number in India or the local number in India and type the meeting ID to join.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, we can hear you now.
हाँ.
हाँ, सेटा अक्षय भाई कथा होचंती. हमें एबे तो सुनी पड़छे.
सेटा मतलब अक्षय फोन रे कथा होचन ना कोन?
हाँ, फोन रे करते कोन अक्षय भाई वीडियो ऑडियो सब बंद हे गला ना.
बुनइटा जो रिकॉर्डिंग हो
हबो.
I'm just trying once again because I'm new to Zoom. I've just downloaded the app, so I'm just trying once again.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay.
And if you turn on your camera, that the camera did work early on, so you should be all set.
Okay. Just let me try.
Yeah. अक्षय भाई कौन उभा नहीं गले पूरा लिस्ट कटि गले पूरा ड्रॉप.
He left. Maybe his colleague.
बोलुई मैं.
हाँ.
अक्षय आसी गले बरा.
हाँ, आसी गले अक्षय भाई.
Okay.
तमार रूममेट को किछ हला नी
के मते पचार चुबनो.
हाँ,
ताको खाली माइल्ड सिम्पटम्स हला से दिन क्रोसिन खाला तर ठीक गेला.
बुनो.
हाँ.
मुता को कहली मुकल से न्यू टू जूम मुता कहली देखि बोटा माइक्रोफोन पर पिक्चर थिबा माइक्रोफोन.
नहीं से we are able to hear her now.
Okay, good.
Unmute yourself, Soumika. Yeah, now you talk.
Do you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you. And if you turn on your camera on the phone, then you can see us. And I guess you are able to see us. Am I right?
No, I'm not able to see. It's working, but it says your video is stopped, but your microphone is unmuted.
Okay. Video, you have to tap on the phone screen and you will see the icon, camera, video icon. Switch that on, turn that on. We saw you earlier. Yes, your video works now, but you are muted. Turn on your mic as well. Yes, yeah, both are on now. Yes, both are on.
Okay, now finally.
Now turn your phone horizontal, not vertical, horizontal. Yes, that's it. So everybody is on now. We can start. Okay.
So sorry, because first let me introduce myself.
Manu, start recording, okay?
So let me just introduce myself. My name is Soumika. I'm calling from Bhubaneswar in Odisha. I am a journalist. I work for the New Indian Express, which is one of the leading dailies of India. So I'm so sorry because I'm new to Zoom. I don't know how to operate it. We didn't feel the need of going on for Zoom meeting until this happened actually.
Well, you're good at it now.
I didn't get you.
Yeah, I was just saying you're doing just fine on Zoom right now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so first, I would like to speak to Mr. Alok Prusti because I think he is the man of the moment now. He is a survivor. So, Mr. Prusti, if you can introduce yourself and tell us about your experiences.
Okay.
We
So
should all clap for him.
Yeah.
So Soumika, I think you don't understand ODI, right?
No, I do understand Odia. I am a Bengali. Basically, I'm from West Bengal, but for the past 2.5 years, I'm in Bhubaneswar, and I have picked up the language, so I can speak a little Odia, but understand the entire. I don't have any problem in understanding the language.
Okay, so let me talk in English then.
Yeah, you can
Okay, my
also
name is
speak in Odia, sir. That's not an issue.
okay. Okay, I am Alok Christie, and I right now I'm in Tampa, Florida. But my wife and daughter they live in Fremont, California. And I have been living in Tampa.
You were where?
My wife and daughter they are in Fremont, California.
Okay, and you are staying in?
Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
Tampa, yeah. So, and I have been here since March 2019, working on a project, and I was supposed to go back to California on 13th March. But because of this Corona thing, my family suggested to stay back. They said in California there are more cases, but in Florida there are less cases, so you are safe there. So you stay there. You can come after some time. So I postponed my ticket and I stayed here. But the unfortunate thing is I got impacted with Corona. So on March 20th, it started with a headache. And then on that night itself, fever started. And it was like 1 or 2.5 like that. And initially I thought it was like just, simple cold and fever. So I didn't care that much. But the fever and headache and body ache that continued for almost like 6 days. And then I was thinking like something is wrong. So I went to urgent care in Tampa, and first they did a flu test, and it came negative, and then they prescribed for COVID-19. So on the same day, I drove to St. Pittsburgh, which is about like 30 miles from here, and I did the COVID-19 test and came back home. Those guys, they said that they're going to get the results in 7 to 10 days. So I was not sure at that point of time also that I had COVID-19. But my fever was still there, and I became very weak physically. And I think I lost around like 12 to 13 pounds in that 10 to 11 days. And on 7th or 8th day, I called my own doctor from Fremont. So we had a video appointment. And as soon as he saw my face on the video and the condition that I was in, he predicted that you have either pneumonia or COVID. And he gave me, he prescribed one antibiotic, which is called, what is that? Azithromycin. And also he prescribed one codeine cough syrup. And he told me to continue with Tylenol, the maximum strength Tylenol 650 mg, what is that? 500 mg Tylenol. So I continued with those three medicines. And after like 3 or 4 days, I could see my fever reducing a bit. And I think on my 12th or 12th day, I had less fever and I didn't take any fever medicine. And from 13th day onwards, I just like took 1 or 2 medicine that day, I think. And my fever started reducing and my headache also started reducing. But those 12 to 13 days, I suffered like hell. It was so severe. I usually, like with every couple of years, I get cold and cough a little bit, sometimes fever. But this time, those 2 weeks, because I never felt that in my life. First of all, physically, I was totally weak. I couldn't get up. Even mentally also, I was kind of getting all these thoughts. And I think that is because of, watching those news about this virus and all those kind of things. And on top of that, my family was not here. So everything added to that. So, and I also felt like I lost memory also for like couple of some times. I felt like I lost memory. So I was kind of physically, mentally, I was very weak. But after 13th day onwards, once my fever started reducing, I could feel the taste and yeah, because those 2 weeks I couldn't feel the taste and smell also I couldn't smell anything. So after 13th day, I think it started little better. And
When did you get your test result? So you know, on what
yeah,
day?
yeah, I got my results like on 3rd of April, I think, 3rd or 4th of April. So Department of Health, Florida Department of Health, they called me and they said you are COVID-19 positive. And they just collected a bunch of data from me, I think from their statistical analysis or whatever. But they didn't advise me anything or they didn't suggest anything. They just collected all my data. Like they asked all those bunch of questions like what symptoms you had, when it started, who were your, like roommates, all those kind of things. But by that time, when I got my results, my fever was already started reducing, and I was feeling little better. So, and today is the 10th day that I didn't have fever, but still I have this mild dry cough. I don't know why is that, but I still have that. But it is much better. What I used to have before, it is much better right now. Yeah, sorry for this long explanation, but
No. Actually, I want all the details correct. I want all the details correct. So I wanted to know that which was the first hospital or first medical facility that you went to when you, noticed your symptoms?
yeah, on 6th day, when my fever didn't reduce, right? That's when I went to a urgent care called Tampa Urgent Care. They are located in Tampa. Yeah,
What
Tampa
is it called?
Urgent Care.
Tampa.
Yeah, Tampa Urgent Care.
Okay, how do you spell that?
TAMPA, Tampa
Mm-hmm.
Urgent Care.
Okay, Tampa Urgent Care. So
Yeah.
that was the 6th day when you first, went for any medical help. So how was the response like when you visited this facility? What were you told immediately? Were you
See,
put in isolation?
oh, no, nothing. I was the only one patient that time. And they just took very casually, like the receptionist, she just took all my information. And then the doctor, she just checked my weight, blood, temperature, all that. And then she did the flu test. And after like 5-10 minutes, she came out with the results and it was negative. And that's when she said, you might have some other thing. So I'm writing a prescription for COVID. Because here to do a COVID-19 test, you need a prescription. So she gave me that prescription. With that only, I could go for that COVID-19 test.
So where did you go for the tests? I mean, what kind of a test it was? I mean, it was a swab test or it
Yeah,
was kind
it was a nasal swab test.
Okay, and where was it conducted?
St. Pittsburgh. If you want the name of the facility, it is called Bay Care. Baycare, Bay Care. They are located in St. Pittsburgh. It is about 30-35 minutes from here, from Tampa.
35?
Miles from here.
50 kilometers.
Yeah.
30 kilometers. So you had to travel to that place for testing yourself?
Yes,
Or
I
did
had
they
fever.
send somebody?
No, I had high fever, but still I drove my car there and did COVID testing and then came back home.
So all this while, from the day you started getting the symptoms till you went for testing, were you in isolation or like you were reading?
Yeah.
I mean, how were you staying actually? You were staying with whom?
Yeah. Actually, since last 5 weeks, we all have been working from home. And we stopped going to all those restaurants and everything. And I think we only went to Costco, and that is a wholesale store, and Indian stores. And when I was sick, that time I was all in home only. I never went out. And even for COVID-19 test also, it was a drive-in kind of a test. You are in the car and they will come and they'll do the nasal swab for testing. So you don't have to get out of the car. And then after testing, I came back home. And I was in my room only all the time.
So you were all alone. I mean, you didn't mingle with it.
Oh no. I live with one another roommate here. We are sharing an apartment.
Okay. So is he all right, or is he also having some?
No, he had some mild symptoms, but he's fine. Like he just took one crocin tablet and then he was fine. He didn't have any issues, any symptoms.
When did he develop such symptoms?
I think maybe like fifth or sixth day when I was sick.
And he didn't go for any further checkup or tests?
No, nothing, because he didn't feel anything. He just had like one day, I think, little fever and slight cough, I think. And once he took one crocin tablet, then he's all fine. He's good. So he didn't go for test or anything. In fact, he's the one who was helping me when I was sick. He's the one who was helping me.
So helping you as in, because see, I have been talking to people in China also, like some Uriya families over there. And so this is how with the help of them, I got in touch with a few Chinese families over there. So they maintained absolute, they quite understood the gravity of the situation, and they, even while staying in the patient, so they took a lot of care. I mean, they would not go to their, go near to this person without wearing proper gears. I mean, they would wear masks and things like that, even at home.
Yeah, even we both also, we stay in separate rooms, and I used to use masks all the time, and he also used to use those gloves and everything. So yeah, whatever possible, we were trying to do all those precautionary things. Yeah.
So I mean, how long did it take for you to go for the test? I mean, you were already suffering. You were in the sixth day of when you suspected that you need some medical care, and then when did you go for test?
Same on sixth day. The same day when I went to urgent care, the same day I did the COVID-19 test. But the results came after like 7 days.
After 7 days. So, do you have any idea what kind of a test it was? It was an antibody-based test, or a pool test, or what are the tests that they are performing?
No, they were just doing the nasal swab. They put something inside my nose and they took the swab.
Specific name to that? Any specific medical name? Anything that they wrote on the prescription, or maybe on the?
It was a drive-through, I think you said.
Correct.
Okay, you know what? Sorry to interrupt. I think we can go out, but we also have two doctors on the call, and one of them is actually at the hospital, and maybe they can fill you in more so on the current situation. Yeah, he did what he had to say, but we have Dr. Surya Mahapatra, as well as we have Dr. Siddharth Pani. Like Alok's family lives in California. He works in Tampa. Everybody else in this call are in and around Boston, Massachusetts. Alok is a long-time friend and associate from Bhubaneswar, so it was nice to have him. And Dr. Pani and Dr. Mahapatra, they both practice in and around Boston, and everybody else is a local resident. Maybe you can direct some of your questions to the doctors, and they see patients, so they can fill you in more. Okay, Dr. Pani, namaskar.
Mr. Prusti, I would also like to speak to you, but then first let me talk to the doctors, and then I'll get back to you, because I need some more details on the emotional front. You know, that how did you tackle yourself? You know, what was the psychological impact of the disease? Okay, but before that, let me get back to the doctors. So I think there's someone, Saurya Mahapatra.
Yes, he's online, yes.
Yes, that nasal swab is actually a PCR test.
Hmm? Doctor, what is
The
that?
swab
You can
test is
simplify
actually
that.
it's a PCR, viral PCR test. Polymerase chain reaction.
Oh, Bhavjo bhi achhe. Bhavjo, namaskar.
Namaskar. How are you?
Okay. So, doctor, how is this test? I mean, can you specify about this test? I mean, how effective it is to learn about the confirmed cases, and why did it take so long to get the results? You know, he said it almost took 7 days for the results to come. If you can talk about the technicalities.
Well, the rapid tests are still in, they're still under formation. They have, I mean, even now we don't get the test at least for the next 24 to 48 hours.
Well, I think there are different companies manufacturing different kinds of tests. And in those days, I think when he suffered, I think it used to take 5 days, a week or so. But now the turnaround time is about 1 week and, 24 hours. And the new test by Abbott, it comes in minutes. But it's a big advancement which is happening every day. So I think New Jersey just started the saliva test. So, you know, there are different kinds of tests. So.
Yeah, but none of these are the antibody tests.
So antibody test is still not.
I mean, there are a couple that are at the verge of being approved, but so far we've been mostly doing the PCR test.
So antibody tests are not happening right now.
No, not in the United States.
Something that I came across in India, you know, India is trying to do some pool tests. So if any idea, I mean, what is it all about? You know, the government over here is talking of performing some pool test where they would, probably take samples from 5, I mean, at least 10 patients can go for mass testing at the same time. So what is that actually? I mean, if you have any knowledge about that, what is that? What are they trying to do?
I have no idea.
Let us mute everybody except.
I think they might be trying to gather data for herd immunity. My guess, it's my guess, is they're trying to gather data for herd immunity. For that, they will have to do this IgG, the antibody tests.
Doctor, if you can explain it in simple terms, you know, because our readers will not understand the medical aspects. So if you can just little simplify it for the readers.
Well, herd immunity refers to how many people in the community have been affected by the virus and have developed antibodies against the virus. So when more than 50 to 70% of the population has antibodies against the virus, that is referred to as herd immunity. Once herd immunity develops, the transmission of the virus is it's kind of curtailed. So we're really looking to see when herd immunity develops, because that's when we think that we will not see as much of viral transmission as we're seeing right now. But I think we're very far from actually checking for herd immunity. I'm not sure what the Indian government is talking about with regards to the pooled samples.
Yeah, actually, that's only what the Uttar Pradesh government has claimed. That they'll start it soon. So they're trying to try it.
So in terms of the antibody tests, as far as I know, at least for the tests that are being developed in the United States, there are a couple of tests that are pretty good. They have good sensitivity and specificity, meaning that sensitivity refers to picking up all the positive cases, whereas specificity refers to, well, if your test is positive, how sure are we that that person actually has the disease? And you really want a test to be high in both sensitivity and specificity for it to be an accurate test. And the tests that are being looked at now, they have very high specificity, but the sensitivity is not great, except for maybe 2 tests. And these are being looked at very, very closely and very, very carefully. I don't know what's being developed in India. I can't comment on the tests that are being developed in India. I think we're getting close to some antibody tests being reasonably accurate in the United States. But again, I can't comment on India.
Coming to the point, what went wrong in United States? I mean, what people over here are, what it is being reported in media, it seems that United States was not aware of the consequences. They didn't take precautions. I mean, this is just what is being told by the media. So I really want to understand that what went wrong in United States. I mean, did they not have proper checking, contact tracing for the patients, or sealing of the borders, or what went wrong?
I think, talking about consequences, nobody knows about the consequences. You're learning the consequences on a daily basis. Yes, when things started happening around the rest of the world, I think we delayed. I can't comment, but I think we delayed a little bit in, sealing the borders, etc., and maintaining the distance and contact tracing. So that's all I can say.
But also, this is a country where it's hard to have a kind of authoritative, to have more of a, to create rules that everybody will follow. So, that was easy in China, or even in places like Hong Kong or Singapore. In India, it seems like the government is doing a reasonably good job in terms of enforcing these rules. In the United States, it's really hard to enforce such rules.
It's a very flexible democracy, United States, even compared to India. So it's very hard to enforce things which were enforced in Wuhan. So
yeah, good things have been done differently. Absolutely. Was there a delay? Probably. Are we speaking from hindsight? We absolutely are.
So, how do you think that India is now under lockdown? I mean, one of the world's largest democracy. I mean, there are a lot of consequences, there are a lot of worries that is there, but still we went for a lockdown, and now it has extended till May 3rd, and we don't know it. It can extend further, or it will be lifted, but there are a lot of restrictions here. People are not stepping out of their homes. So what do you think, that is lockdown, how effective it is a measure to to stop community transmission, to contain the virus? How
I think it's
effective?
absolutely important. I think that's the most important thing you can do. I mean, the government is rightly doing so. We know things have happened despite the restrictions, as a result of which things have started spreading in India. And
Well, also, I think in India, that the problem is that there's a lot of distress that has been caused by the restrictions, right? People have not been able to, I think there are states, I'm not sure about Orissa. Orissa seems to be doing actually quite well, but there are states like Madhya Pradesh, people are not able to get vegetables to buy in the stores. You know, we know about the laborers and all the migrants and the workers who have had such difficulties in terms of getting back to their homes. So, you know, I think in India, there's that distress, and then there is the risk of transmission of the coronavirus, which is, you know, it's an important consideration. So, you know, it's really hard for us to comment on what's going on in India, really. But there's so many issues to consider in India. You know, I have friends who are very, very, you know, really upset about the fact that the migrant laborers were left to their own devices without any support and without any transportation available to them. You know, I have friends who are in Madhya Pradesh and are not getting vegetables to buy. You know, but at the same time, you know, having seen how you know what's happened in the United States, you know, I can only, you know, I feel that it's really important to do the social distancing and to really, you know, do what the government is saying to do.
I mean, this. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. You were asking something.
No, but see, we don't deny that there are a lot of problems. You know, the entire lifestyle has changed. People are not used to staying indoors. There were initial glitches in you know, supply of essentials, but then I think that there was no other alternative that the Indian government had at that point of time. And so, you know, we wanted to understand that what is the medical implication of a lockdown? I mean, how is it a measure that can check community transmission?
Well, I think when there's a lockdown, people don't come in contact with each other. And that, in my mind, that is what reduces the community spread. So the spread is, as you know, through droplets. And some of these droplets are very fine. They travel long distances, and, you know, they can stay in the air for variable periods of time. So even though it's not considered an airborne disease, it kind of can be airborne because of these droplets, which are very fine and can travel and can stay around for a long time. So so if people are not mingling, you have lesser chances of this kind of transmission because there is less exposure to droplets from patients who are affected or who may be asymptomatic but still are spreaders of the disease. You know, maybe Sorry has something to add to that.
Yeah. So one more aspect.
No, I think
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if you talk about, since she spoke about the asymptomatic cases, if we talk about Odisha, you know, currently, let me tell you, I'm at the hotspot because I'm in one of the containment zone. Bhubaneswar has seen an increase in number of cases, and I'm staying at a place called Bomikhal in Bhubaneswar, which has been marked as the containment zone. Because, you know, there are 19 cases, currently there are 19 cases from my locality. So we are absolutely indoors, we are not going out, we are not stepping out. There is a drone surveillance that is happening. What I want to understand, you know, when testing begun, you know, when contact tracing and testing begun after some Tablighi Jamaat cases were found over here. So there were a lot of the subsequent cases that came up. They were all asymptomatic, but they tested positive. So they were absolutely okay. They were going to the market, they were getting vegetables. And and they showed no symptoms. Even within 14 days, they showed no symptoms at all. So what you have to, what you have to say regarding that? How is it possible? You know, they didn't show any symptom, even when they were close to 14 days, but they
Well,
tested positive.
I do not know what's the quality of testing, but even here we have a lot of false positives. So,
But we know that there is asymptomatic spread, so there are asymptomatic cases. If you do enough testing, you will find the asymptomatic cases.
Okay, so how can it come? I mean, false. You spoke about false positives. How? I mean, can you elaborate on that? Can you elaborate on that? I mean, how is it all? I mean, how is it possible, and why false positives are appearing?
well, again, as I said, it all depends upon the quality of the tests, that who's manufacturing those kits, et cetera, et cetera. So even here, in the earlier days, there used to be 20 to 30% false positives. So it's all about how you test it. So I don't know what else I can say about it.
Yeah, I mean, no test is
100%.
perfect. There can be errors in terms of false negatives and false positives.
So here in the United States, there was a time when we started, many of the pharmacies started selling home test kits, which they procured from other parts of the world, from China and other places. They're full of fallacies. So, so it all depends upon who is manufacturing them, whether they're regulated, so on and so forth.
And having said that, I mean, it is possible that there are people who are asymptomatic
True.
And still are carriers of the disease, or or have been infected by the disease rather, not carriers. So that is possible. I think that is the reason we think that there is so much community
brings
spread.
me to the question. So that again brings me to the question that what, as of now, you think is the most accurate way of testing a COVID patient? Where the chances of being false positives or false negatives is not zero, but at least negligible.
Here in the United States, all these new tests that are coming up on a daily basis, most of them are FDA regulated by the,
and the PCR tests.
Right, and they're PCR tests, and they're regulated by a federal, what should I say?
A federal agency, which
federal agency.
Regulations to
so I do not know what kind of regulation is there in India, but these agencies have very strict criteria. So I assume that the false positive rates have come down, and we're getting, most of them are true positives. But I cannot name one particular test which is 100% foolproof. I think when we finally get the antibody testing.
So, so the PCR test for active infection, that's what it does. The antibody test, depending upon the kind of antibody, could test for both active infection and infection that has occurred, but the person has kind of recovered from the infection. So it kind of depends upon the antibody being tested. Yeah, I'm not sure that we can answer your question regarding which is the best test to use at this point of time. At this point of time, you only have the PCR test, so there's not even a choice.
Okay. So how about the antibody test? I mean, if you guys get a kit for the antibody test, I mean, how will it be?
So we are really looking at the antibody test as being helpful in terms of indicating who has been infected by the virus and therefore is potentially immune. And right now, the big focus on antibody tests is to try and identify people who have been infected, have recovered, and that therefore can go back to the workforce because they are presumed immune. So that is the most important implication of the antibody test at the present time in the United States, because we're really looking forward to opening up our economy to some extent. And this is the safest way to do it, to send the people back to work who are not going to be infected or spread the infection.
But having said that, commercially, we still don't have antibody testing.
But as far as my knowledge go, I mean, I may be wrong, but even when there's an antibody test, it is very difficult. It might be difficult to tell whether it is positive or negative because, a person who might have recovered will still have those antibodies for some point of time in his circulating in his body. I mean, it will still be there.
So that is
But
the point.
That's a different antibody. That's a different antibody.
Yeah.
But also,
if you can elaborate on that.
Here, Soumik.
Yes.
Soumik, let me give you a live example right here. Just see Mr. Prusti. 10 days ago, if you had tested his blood, you would have gotten an IgM. Now that he has recovered, and maybe in the next couple of weeks, if we repeat a blood test, we'll get an IgG. So IgM is indicative of active infection, and IgG is indication that the patient has had infection and has now developed antibodies immunity.
And
that's the simplest example I can give right here in front of you.
And I think what's really important to consider is not so much detecting the infection as much as knowing that somebody has been infected and has recovered. So actually the IgG antibodies, which indicate past infection, are almost more important at this point of time than the IgM antibodies detecting active infection. And that is because, again, of what I said, because if somebody has IgG antibodies and that suggests that that person has now immunity against the virus, that person could get back to work and we wouldn't be concerned about that person either getting the disease or transmitting the disease.
So somebody who's having that IgG antibody, has developed some kind of immunity against the virus and the chances of transmission is less. Is that so?
Correct.
He should not be transmitting.
Correct.
He should not be transmitting the disease, yes.
Correct.
He should not be transmitting, or he may transmit. I mean,
well, we don't know how.
Is there 100% guarantee?
Well, in medicine, there's never 100% guarantee about anything. But if the antibody, it kind of depends. Yeah, the chances of him transmitting the infection would be much lower if he has the IgG antibodies, at least based upon what we understand of the disease right now. And again, our knowledge of the disease continues to evolve over time. And if our presumption is that this immunity is absolute, is as absolute as it can be, maybe that is not absolute, that is only partial. But again, we don't know right now. And I think as time goes by, we'll have a better understanding of it. I think you probably have heard of cases in Wuhan and other parts of China where people who have had the disease and recovered have actually, again, tested positive in terms of the viremia. And we don't quite understand what that means. And I don't have I actually haven't read up on these cases enough to know whether they actually manifest any symptoms of the disease. So it may well be that the immunity is not absolute. It's only partial. But again, I think as we understand the disease more, we will have more information about all of this.
So about this, over here, there's a lot of emphasis being given on the 14 days cycle, 14 days to, again, it is 14 or 21 days. If you can explain this cycle, I mean, how long does it take for a person to develop, if there is at all any evidence that how long does it take for a person to develop some kind of immunity against this virus?
I have no idea.
Can't comment. I really can't comment.
Okay, so let's, Doctor, now let's talk about some myths of related to COVID. And what are the myths that people should not believe in?
I don't know. In the the last time we had a little meeting like this, people talked about, as far as the treatment goes, people talked about gargling and stuff like that. But that's one of the myths because what's the temperature?
Yeah, I think the temperature to kill the virus is in the range of 114 or 117 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, this is not Celsius. We tend to think in Fahrenheit here, so I haven't converted that to Celsius. And your gargling
Temperature.
that's not going to get to that temperature, so it's probably not going to kill the virus. Is it bad to gargle? No.
What's the temperature required to kill the virus?
100
It's something in the range of 114 to 117 degrees Fahrenheit. But again, I
think it's in Celsius, it's above 55 degree or more Celsius. That is like 150, 60 degree Fahrenheit. So you have to have 52 to 55 degree Celsius. And we cannot gargle with that high temperature water.
That's one of the myths. I'm sure there are more, right?
And someone said they can use a hair, whatever, dryer, heat hot air, hair dryer, breathe in. That's not going to happen.
It's kind of uncomfortable also.
You'll burn yourself.
So, coming to this temperature factor, I mean, do you think that India has an advantage to other countries right now because it is experiencing summer and it is approaching? I mean, the peak summer is approaching.
I don't know the answer to that. I can only hope that it's going to be advantageous for India to have its summer now. When the ex-director of the CDC was speaking about this, he did suggest that his feeling was that this virus would have a cyclical pattern such that it would peak in the winter months and kind of die down in the summer. If that is true, now that India is in the throes of summer already, then potentially that could be a mitigating factor. But again, we don't really know because we just know so little about this virus.
What are the chances of relapse? If this kind of in some patients, if there's a relapse during the spring or the winter in India, do you think it is going to be devastating at that point of time?
Well, again, when Scott Gottlieb was talking about this, he's the ex-director, I think, of the CDC, he did indicate that there was a good chance that it would resurface in the winter months, or actually he said as early as September or October of 2020 in the United States. Again, I can't speak for India. Now, what does he know for sure? He doesn't. He's guessing. He's guessing based upon the behavior of other viruses, other respiratory viruses. When you think back to other, coronaviruses like the SARS or the MERS virus and those epidemics, they did come back, but they didn't really come back to the same degree as, for the first season. So again, the hope is that even if this virus comes back, that if there's enough herd immunity, if enough of the population has been infected and has developed antibodies against the virus, that maybe the next season will not be as severe as the first season. I don't know if that makes sense.
If India is going for a pool test, it will help the government in determining the kind of immunity that the community is developing.
Well, Sorry is right, and if that's what they mean by the pool testing, again, I don't know what pool testing really means, but if that's what they're looking at and looking for herd immunity, I think it would be if they can pull it off and really test the large numbers of patients and the general population that would be required to assess herd immunity, that could be a good predictor of what's to come. But that's going to require enormous amount of testing.
Because you need about 50% of the population to have antibodies to stop spreading. So, which means like in a country like India, where like there are 1.3 billion people, that's a lot of testing.
You could test samples of the population and get an estimate of the immunity within that sample of the population. But in this country, at this point of time, they're really talking about testing the majority of the population to assess for herd immunity at some point of time. So I can't even imagine the enormity of that task. I mean, it's not that it can't be done, it's done for, I mean, it can be done. India has done a great job with other, viral infections in terms of, stopping polio or, or smallpox and all these things that required, huge numbers of people to be vaccinated, and it pulled that off. So potentially it could. I'm just saying it's a Herculean task.
So anything that you guys want to add, because you are there, you're getting the COVID patients. How is it? I mean, I want to know about the experiences now. What do people come with, and how do you? I mean, you wear gears or not? So little things that people would like to know.
Surja, do you have to say anything?
Well, wearing PPE is essential.
Well, I think what we can say is that it's really, really bad when it happens. When you have the people in the ICUs and they're struggling to breathe, and the ventilators are doing what they can, but there's only so much that the ventilators can do. It's not a good thing. Fortunately, it's only a small proportion of people who are infected by COVID, by the coronavirus, that actually get to that point. For the people who are in the hospitals, in the ICUs, it's really bad.
And the symptoms happen real quick. I mean, when you go into respiratory failure, it really happens very quickly. So,
and again, I have not seen these patients myself, but from what I've heard from my colleagues, people could come in with just a little bit of respiratory distress, and within hours, they're on the ventilator.
Yeah, so any more experiences, sir? I think if I get your names correctly.
yeah, sure.
I have emailed you the names. They're in your email.
Yeah, I know, but I need to identify who is who.
Okay.
A quick introduction session.
Yeah.
I'm Madhusmita Mishra.
Okay.
And I am Siddharth. I'm sure it's there in your email.
Yeah, it's there.
And
I think, yeah, you are Saurya Mahapatra. Okay. So, Mr. Mahapatra, anything that you want to add about your own experiences of, I mean, are you seeing COVID patients over there?
I am.
So how many patients do come to you with, with COVID-like symptoms?
Well, just just 2 weeks ago, I was on a 2-week stint in the COVID ER at a hospital in Vermont, and we did see people coming with symptoms, although none of them did test positive. So that was a good thing. Most of them had, chronic lung disease, which was worsened. And again, as I had said, that we are kind of in a change of season, so we will see the common diseases along with the COVID patients. So basically, anybody who came in with the shortness of breath, cough, and fever, even if they had a normal, regular community-acquired pneumonia, we would still put them in the COVID ER and check them for in the COVID protocol. Yeah.
Siddharth, you have seen some patients with COVID.
Yeah.
Recently. Did you want to talk about them?
Yeah, I have seen quite a few who, the way we practice now is a little different in the sense that we try to screen a lot of patients over the telephone or video conferencing. And we try to send them towards the respiratory clinics, which Dr. Mahapatra was mentioning. So he takes care of them thereafter. So the few who just walk in, you can pretty much, from their symptoms, get an idea as to, you have seen so many cases by now that you can pretty much guess based on the history and their symptoms about who has COVID or who doesn't have COVID.
And who eventually comes back positive.
And I think based on the testing criteria, because every place has its own testing criteria. I do not know how things are in India, but based on the testing criteria, you can pretty much guess if you start including or excluding those points as to who is very likely to test positive. Right, Sorja?
Sure.
I don't know what else to add here.
So, Mr. Mahapatra, what according to you, the world is now trying to look at an efficient model that could, the China model or the Korea model, or, so what do you think? I mean, what is the effective model to follow right now?
Well, is to enforce social distancing and isolation. That is number one. And why go to China and Korea? I mean, we have two good examples here in India itself, the Bhilwara model and Kerala, and to a certain extent Karnataka.
I think every country has its own different, what should I say, demographics or the way the country is being governed. So I don't think we can take somebody's model and fit it here.
I think social distancing is really critical and it has to be done. But I think when you think about social distancing, it's really important also to think about the people and who's going to be inconvenienced to what degree and how can that be mitigated. How can we think and plan in advance so that we can take care of the people who will be the most impacted by such such stringent rules.
Well, and another thing, talking about modeling here, even if you see Northeast United States and you see the different states here, you look at New York, what happened in New York and what's happening in Massachusetts. I think we learned a lot from what happened in New York. And as a result of which we prepared, Massachusetts did a great job in preparing for the surge. As a result of which the peak of the curve which happened in New York is not happening in Massachusetts. So, it's a learning experience depending upon, you try to learn from some person, so there's no one model here.
Okay. So when you're talking about social distancing, I mean, what are the key rules of social distancing? How much distance people should maintain, and how is it going to help?
Well, people
the
talk
average
about
is 6 feet.
Yeah, so we started by saying it should be 6 feet, but I think we are now realizing that it could be more than 6 feet, that the droplets can travel further than 6 feet. And that's why it's become important to enforce the mask policy. That if you have the masks on, even if you are transmitting the virus, at least the mask will prevent you from transmitting the virus. So that's a key component now of social distancing. But at least 6 feet. I think we know now that it can actually travel as much as 8 feet or so.
go up to 12
So
to almost
like in
12 to
Odisha,
13 feet is what's
yeah, Dr. Mahapatra, you wanted to say something.
No, I said I was just adding to Dr. Misra's statement. If from 6 feet, the newer data says that it can go up to 12 to 13 feet.
But also with social distancing, I think it's really important to emphasize hand hygiene, hand washing, using hand sanitizers. Because you could be practicing social distancing. I mean, the masks are good because at least will prevent people from transmitting the droplets. But if somebody didn't have a mask and coughed it or whatever, and then the droplets kind of fell on a surface, you could do all the social distancing you want. But if you would go and touch that surface, you have the droplets in your hand. You have the virus in your hand, and you could transmit that to yourself. So I think social distancing is really important. It's really important to practice hand hygiene. It's really important not to touch your face as far as is possible. I think all of that together will be important to implement to prevent, to limit the transmission of the virus.
So in Odisha, like it is mandatory to wear masks, and the government has made it mandatory. If you're not wearing a mask, you could be fined.
That's good.
But what kind of mask do we wear? I mean, everybody over here cannot afford or do not have access to N95 or things like that. So what kind of mask do
when you're going out, even if you at least cover your face with a scarf or anything, even that's better than nothing.
Yeah. So that will at least prevent the transmission of the virus. I don't know how it's, how effective it is in preventing getting the virus.
Okay, and then there was also initial short supply of sanitizers, people hoarding in sanitizers. So what's the myth? I mean, if you do not have sanitizer, what is the alternative? Is soap water, soap water
soap
is
and water.
Effective.
Soap and water.
Yeah.
Very effective.
Soap water is the most effective thing, actually.
It is the most effective.
And then there were suggestions, like that if you keep drinking warm water throughout the day, probably you will flush out the virus out of your system.
That's the myth.
So how about that?
Myth.
And in US, the good thing is we have running hot water from the tap readily available. So we wash our hands as much as we go out, pick something up. Like, that's the best way, I guess. I don't have any sanitizers left, but washing my hands, I go to work every day.
But she's talking about drinking.
Soap is the most effective thing.
Yeah, soap with the warm water. Soap with the warm water. We get running warm water 24/7. That's the good thing. So yeah, soap and running.
I'm talking about drinking.
She's talking about drinking water.
Drinking
water.
No, that's not going to help. That's the myth you all already clarified. Yeah, gargling is not going to help.
And the second thing is,
and then there is
it's not going orally. You have to realize that it's going. It could, but it's basically more through the nose and to your respiratory tract, right? So if you are talking about just drinking and sending it to your GI system, I mean, it can, of course, you can aspirate and it can go to your lungs, but.
How about, people also have this over here, the Ministry of Ayush, Ayurveda Ministry, it suggested people to drink turmeric tea or turmeric drinks to build up the immunity.
So,
how about that?
Yeah, so again, we have no data to indicate whether that is successful or not. It may be, we don't know. Again, we have no scientific data at this point to support one strategy versus the other when it comes to, these are household remedies. And again, like I've said before, that, they're not harmful, and if they can be helpful, that is great, but we have no data to support that they actually are.
Can COVID, if symptoms do not, if the symptoms do not become too critical, can COVID patients be managed at home?
Yes.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely.
Alok stayed at home 20 days and he's all good now.
In fact, majority are staying at home.
Yeah.
Even if we send them to the hospital, we try to discharge them as quickly as possible, the moment they're stable. You look at the Prime Minister of UK. The moment he was out of the ICU, he was sent home.
So there's no need to panic about it. And if you are at home, then how should you take care of yourself? I mean, what are the things that you need to do in order to get rid of the virus as soon as possible?
Nothing different.
I mean, yeah, you would have to treat the fever, so you treat the fever with, paracetamol in India, acetaminophen here, anything else that may be required that may be a little more, well, I think acetaminophen and paracetamol are the strategies that are working the best. You want to stay well hydrated. If the cough is really bad, maybe you could take something for the cough.
Basically symptomatic.
We don't have an antiviral agent yet that we know is effective. Again, there's so many drugs that are under study right now, and hopefully we'll have some answers by July or so. But at this point of time, we don't have an antiviral drug. So there's nothing you can actually do to kill the virus any faster than it would, otherwise in your system.
People talk about chloroquine, people talk about Zithromax, and so many different drugs are on trial in different countries, but there's nothing conclusive yet.
Yeah, I know that many hospitals, when patients are admitted with symptoms, they are starting them on chloroquine and azithromycin. But again, it's empiric treatment. And again, there were a couple of studies that suggested that those might be effective in reducing the viral load or reducing the duration of symptoms. But again, those were not definitive studies. And there are some other studies that have suggested that the combination can be, quite dangerous in terms of cardiac complications. So we'll have to see. We just need a little bit more time to analyze the data from the studies that are being done and what studies supposed to be completed. But
so how are patients there being treated? Because there was a news that the US wanted the anti-malaria drug from India. So how are
not US, the president wanted. So, if you talk to our infectious disease experts like Dr. Fauci, he doesn't say that.
Well, I think what's happening in hospitals in the ICUs is that people are so sick that doctors are just throwing in anything they can find to treat them with. And that includes hydroxychloroquine, which is the anti-malarial drug you're talking about, and azithromycin. And if they can get anything else that's in trials, they throw that in as well. So people are just desperately trying to do what they can to save people who are that sick. But again, we don't know that those drugs are actually helping.
So are those drugs actually helping the anti-malaria
We don't know.
So that's what I'm saying, that we don't know that they're helping.
What she's saying is, if I go to the ICU now, like one of the drugs which is used to treat the various symptoms is hydroxychloroquine. We are just throwing it in. We do not know.
Yeah. So when doctors are helpless, we do everything we can to try and save the patient. When we know that we have nothing to help the patient, we will do what we can to save the patient, even if it means trying a drug that we're not sure is going to help or not. So that is what people are doing. In the ICUs, they're so desperate at this point of time to try and help these people who are so very sick that they are treating them with hydroxychloroquine, not knowing whether that's going to be effective or not, but hoping that it might be.
You know, all the results are anecdotal from different parts of the world, so we don't know.
Okay, it's almost 10 o'clock here. Are we about to be done?
If he has questions for anybody else, that's fine.
Yes, I would now like to speak to people, you know, that how are they, what are they doing, how are they spending this life in office, outside office, how are they working, so a little bit of the social aspect.
No parties, no social gatherings. We had some plans to celebrate with Kaldibas and all of that. Everything is on hold now. Most of the people are working from home. Online food delivery is probably the way to go. And just stay home, work, and only essential people, workers, are pretty much on road. And one good thing is, yes, unlike India, liquor is essential in US, so everybody has access to liquor.
It's also being delivered online?
No, people can go and buy their own booze from the liquor store. They're open.
Okay, so only the liquor stores and the grocery stores are open. Except for that,
banks are open.
Other than that,
no, banks are open. Financial institutions are open. Groceries are open. Liquor store is open.
Pharmacies is open.
Pharmacies are open. Yeah, pharmacies, medical stores are open.
Gas stations are open.
Gas stations are open. Yeah. Okay, bhai, you on mute. I'm going to unmute you. Unmute. Yeah, now you can talk.
Okay, Mukul, my work is open because we support defense and telecommunication.
Yeah,
So
defense and telecommunication backbone, they're open. Yeah.
so how are you? I mean, it is definitely difficult to work from home. And can you talk about the work from home culture in US? You know, what are the people following there? You know, what are the employers demanding, and how are the employees fulfilling it? If you can talk about the work culture.
If someone works on a system which has not as much physical interaction or action at work, US infrastructure pretty much allows everybody to work from home. For example, if you want to have meetings, yeah, you have meetings face-to-face in conference rooms, but you can also have meetings like this. That helps. Software development, or like Mr. Somanthi, he's on this call. He works for an hospital, but on the IT technology side, he can do that from anywhere. So most of the works, if it is not physical actions involved, like my wife is not gone to office for a month now. My son, who's in final year of college, fourth year of college, he's doing online courses. Yes, college students are a little tough depending upon what they study. Lab works and practicals are a little affected, but they're also been done online. And you know, even the art schools, music, drama schools, the other day on the news, they were saying they are doing these kind of visual conferences. And in US, the bandwidth, you know, Dr. Mahapatra is at work today. He had a poor signal because of his cell data, but pretty much everybody else, we all have good Wi-Fi. And if you are in also a good telephone signal area, then also you have good bandwidth, and they pretty much teach everything online. And people are so used to buying online things here. You know, the retail stores and all of that, they have started going out of business. So that part is growing big time, like Amazon. And online Netflix, Amazon Prime movies, those are people watch post their work. And There are applications that you can use to exercise in your house. You have most every family has some or other equipments at home in US. That's a practice. And there are softwares applications made that people can use and then play with their exercise machines and work out. So that has become a kind of new norm for the COVID situation, that as much as we cannot go out, people stay home, work from home. But the work, constructions, the work that need physical actions, yeah, they are kind of delayed and they're in the back bench now. Nothing much
So,
is
sir,
being done.
can I have your name, please?
My name is Debadatta Bunu, the guy who emailed you.
Yeah.
You have my email has my signature at the bottom. And
After
And
that,
where are you staying, sir? Where are you staying right now?
I'm like 15 miles, like 25 kilometers from Boston downtown, Massachusetts.
and whatever the
What do you do, sir? What do you do?
I'm a computer engineer, software engineer, and I manage some accounts and the IT of my company. That's all.
So somebody
And-
else was trying to get online.
yeah,
Yeah,
I was trying to say, if you still have some time, then you have WhatsApp. You know, you can burn some time in your WhatsApp. You have enough stuff out there. You know, warm water, turmeric water, whatever. You can
viral.
circulate all those. Yeah. So, you know, that's life now.
I would also want to know about, like, the psychological impact, like how are people, like, it's very difficult for, at least in India, there are a lot of mental health issues that are coming up. People are not used to staying at home. So they're finding it pretty much difficult, not used to working from home. They're finding it extremely difficult, and amid this uncertainties, a lot of uncertainties, they're finding hard to keep themselves, mentally fit. So what are the things that people in US are doing? Are they also facing mental issues, psychological issues? If you
Yes,
can,
those situations are pretty much here. Rentals, yes, but the United States government came up with $2 trillion stimulus package, and some of these money are given to workers. This is a capitalist country. Everything runs around money. Millions of people have already filed unemployment, and the stimulus package is helping them. The government, like in Odisha or India, they have requested the house owners to delay their rentals, and the banks have been asked as well. Those are kind of things the government is doing to help general public. But like the other thing you said, household things, the domestic violence has gone up throughout the world. It's not only India, not in US. When people stay, it will go a little up. So similar in nature. So, but we haven't seen much of that here as much. But the fear of losing job, business not doing good, fear of losing money in a capitalist economic country is there, definitely.
how about, what are the things that you guys are practicing? What are the things that you guys are doing to cope up with these situations? Like, on social media, there are online concerts or this thing happening. So as a community over there, any such initiatives that have been taken by
Yes,
the Odia community over there?
every association, Odia, Andhra, Bengali, Bihari, all different associations. Like we had a call today, the Indian Association, all these state associations work with the Indian Association also. We try to do this kind of, like, we pretty much have Zoom conferences and sometimes just fun parties. Friends get together online Friday night, they talk, we go, and people are allowed to get out of the house here actually, as long as you have social distancing. And US is 5 times, pretty much 4.5 times bigger in size, and population is 1/3. So we have a lot of areas in suburbs, not in the downtown areas, but in the suburbs, to go out for a walk, we do that. That keeps you busy, and a lot of options when it comes to entertainment like TV, movies, Hollywood, Hindi. You know, I have ODI channels at home also, so we watch those, and different things to do. You just have to find something new, something different that you can keep yourself busy with, I guess.
Bunu,
So for the children, one of the things we're really emphasizing is the importance of structure, that we need to try and preserve a curriculum over the course of the day. So we're really encouraging the parents to make sure that the children wake up at the right time, that they do their schoolwork at the right time, that they have playtime, whatever that looks like, at the usual time, and they go to bed at the same time. So we think structure is really important at this time. And there are many resources that are being made available for families, for children, to help them through this period. For us, for example, as healthcare workers, the hospitals are really stressing the importance of tools such as meditation and Zoom meetings and such to de-stress and such to help us through this process. So there is a lot of thought being put into maintaining the morale of the population, at least particular groups of people.
The school and the teachers have been doing a great job of providing a structure for the kids. I have a kid that's in elementary school, and the teacher is doing Zoom meetings at least twice a week, so the kids can talk to their friends. They don't feel like they haven't seen their friends in a month. So and then they provide a structure for a week. Every Friday we get a structure for the next week, and as parents we just have to make sure that they follow that. And I mean, like, I feel like kids are very resilient. They have been doing much better than I anticipated. I think as grown-ups, we are probably struggling more than the kids. And
Can you quickly introduce yourself?
Oh, my name is Rima Patnaik, and I live in Ashland, Massachusetts.
You live in?
Ashland, Ashland.
Okay. And you work somewhere, ma'am?
I am a real estate agent, so kinda it has put a damper on it, but it's okay. It's going on all right. We are trying to stay connected to the clients.
And how about your kids, ma'am? How old are they?
I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old.
Okay. And what about the playtime of the kids? How are you managing the, they cannot go outdoors, so are they going outdoors?
Yes, they, as Bunubhai said, we are all allowed to step outside of the house. And as he said, if you're not in the downtown area, you kind of have a little bit of front yard or backyard, so the kids can play as long as they're not coming in contact with others. It's fine. And if you are in suburbs, then Massachusetts is pretty wooded, so if there are trails and all, you could go for a hike there as long as you are maintaining social distance. So yeah, I mean, if the weather is good outside, the kids can play around, they can bike. Those things are allowed, so that's kind of helping them out a bit.
And anyone else want to share their experience of how they are spending their isolation? Their lockdown period.
I think a lot of people are into cooking. I think they are experimenting with some food. At least that's what I hear. Talking to a lot of people around here.
Yeah.
We sometimes we play board games.
Okay. Prushti sir, my question to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what message do you want to share with the COVID patients? How do they take care of their psychological health You know, it's not just the physical health, because this is a new disease, so it's taking toll on the mental health as well.
Yeah, what I would suggest is isolate yourself as much as possible. And if you don't really need to go out, then don't go out. Try to and also when you're sick, don't watch news, don't watch TV, don't read news. Um, and just you have to just just like a fever, how you take care of fever, you just think that you have fever and you just take care of yourself. And you have to, as the doctors were saying, hydrate yourself, keep on drinking something hot, uh, and I think that's pretty much it. And just physically and mentally try to be strong.
And did you also take up some other assignments or work or hobbies to kind of ease yourself?
Yeah, I started playing Catan. That is a new board game we started playing. So which kinds of takes our mind a little bit off.
No, during illness, did you try
Oh,
playing?
during my I was not in a condition to get up. I was totally physically very weak. But still, I was like, sometimes whenever my fever used to go down, I used to pick up my laptop and just work on some emails and all that. But otherwise, it was very difficult. It was very, I was very weak to get up. Even some days I was finding very hard to go to even the bathroom. So yeah, those 12-13 days that when I used to have fever and headache and body ache, it was difficult to go out.
Okay, I guess that should be enough for now.
Yeah.
And Soumika, we did record this. So if in case you missed anything, I'll upload.
Yeah, that would be great actually. If you can
I will
upload, or if you can share the link.
Sharing will be tough because this will be a big file, like in MBs.
No,
so I'll privately share it so that nobody else gets it. I'll privately share it with you, your email, and you can view and play and make additional notes out of it. Then once you are done, I'll delete the upload. Okay?
Yeah, keep it for a day. Keep it for today at least, because I need to rewind and.
Absolutely. Until you tell me you are done, I'm not going to take it off. And you have my email, you have my WhatsApp number, and if you have additional questions, who's who, feel free to reach out. We'll let you know. And if you need more other people to talk, we can plan it better next time. We have other ODs throughout the country. We have ODs other countries too, so we'll see. Okay. Thank you everybody for joining. Anything?
There's a small note for everybody. I mean, if anybody is, we are doing a lot of stories of Corona warriors. I mean, people who are taking up extraordinary activities even during this crisis, trying to help people, or trying for going in for some innovative things. Then we are featuring them in separate articles. So if anybody
Can I say something?
Rima wants to add something.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there are a bunch of women here who are sewing masks to help out frontline people, and there is Manorama Chaudhary of.
Yeah, we can probably line up them with you. Yeah, there are people those who are involved.
Doing a lot on that front.
Yeah,
they can help you.
there are people involved in social working and all. Yeah, we'll do that.
I gave her contact to her.
Yeah, and
for that you can probably leave me a WhatsApp message, and I can go for one-to-one interaction.
Yes, yeah, that's possible.
Share my number with everybody who is online, and if there is some development, something that you think that can make a good story from Odisha or India perspective, we can surely, because we are looking for people I mean, Odia people staying outside who are doing, I mean, good job. Okay, and I also wanted to know, I mean, one question to finish with to wrap up is that how is the Odia community surviving there? Are there any problems or anything that they want to share it with the government? How is the community you know, surviving during this crisis period?
You have pretty much the community office bearers remaining on the call right now. And we are trying to stay connected, trying to stay in touch, help one another, trying to stay together strong. And we, like I said, we make different Zoom meetings, WhatsApp, iPhone, video chats just to pass time. And in the process, we seek out who's needing what and help each other. That's how we've been pretty much. And till now, nothing bad has happened yet within our Odia community that we know of. Everybody is
How
healthy
about
and safe.
Odia New Year? Any celebrations this time? I mean, at least virtually?
We canceled everything. We canceled everything. We had a virtual party for Utkal Divas, few willing volunteers, that's it. But the real act was cancelled.
Okay, so how was the virtual party? I mean, what did you organize for the virtual party?
Songs,
How did it
khati,
go?
talking, food.
We had our Antakshari, sort of
Antakshari.
Antakshari last weekend. There were like 20 odd people on one call like this, and everybody was singing.
Sing song. There are more in pipeline. Like there will be early morning 4 o'clock for you if you want to come in and join.
One quick question: did you say you are from Indian Express, or this is the new
The same thing.
Indian Express?
Indian Express is the same news.
No. I think it is different,
No,
right?
it's different because Indian Express it's doing its business. See, it originated from the same company. The mother company was same Indian Express, but then it got split into two of the family members after the founder passed away.
Yeah.
So the Indian Express doesn't,
It is
according
Goenka,
to the
right?
contract, yes,
That's
Ramnath
Arthi
Goenka.
Goenka, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Ramnath Goenka. So the Indian Express does its business or circulation in the northern half of the country.
Okay.
Whereas the new Indian Express, starting from Odisha till Andaman and Nicobar Islands, we do the business. Recently, we have also launched our edition in New Delhi, but with a different masthead, with a different title, because we cannot use the same title. So it's called Morning Standard, that comes out from Delhi. And in Kolkata also, it's Morning Standard. So cities of operation currently is New Delhi, Calcutta, Chennai, Bhubaneswar, and all the southern, cities like Trivandrum, Kochi, Kottayam. So the entire South India, where they don't get Indian Express, entire South India up to Andaman and Nicobar Islands.
And you are associated with Bhubaneswar publication? Or
Yes, and I work for
okay.
the Odisha edition. So that's why I connected to the Odia community, because I am working for the Odisha edition. So in Odisha also we have multi-edition. We have a paper coming for Sambalpur, we have for Jaipur, and there's the master edition, that's the Bhubaneswar edition, Bhubaneswar Cutter, Twin City.
Is it part of Sanjeev Goenka group or the other brother?
No, it's the group was Ramnath Goenka's. It was founded by Ramnath Goenka. Now the New Indian Express is looked after by Manoj Sontalia. So he and his family. He is I think he's one of the grandsons of Mr. Goenka. So I think that's it. I mean, hello?
Yeah, we're
You're
still
on
here.
mute, Bunwai.
Oh, I said, I guess we're all good now. Enough for today. And like I said, I'll send you the link once I upload, and we'll go from there.
Yes.
Thank you.
Please send me the
Thank
link
you.
ASAP because I need to work on it.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Good
Stay
night,
safe,
Thank you.
stay home.
Safe, everybody.
Good
Okay.
night.
Bye.
Oh, sorry, it's good morning over here, but good night to
Yeah,
you all.
good morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.